على سيدنا محمد وعلى آل سيدنا محمد وبارك وسلم. اللهم بارك على محمد وعلى آل محمد وبارك وسلم. Alhamdulillah, tonight we have a very beautiful topic by a great esteemed scholar visiting us, a healthy, meaningful lifestyle through Islamic holistic health. Rasulullah has said in Sahih Muslim, as narrated in Sahih Muslim, the strong believer, al-mu'min al-qawi ahabbu ilallah, khayrun wa ahabbu ilallah, min al-mu'min al-da'if. That the strong believer is better and more beloved to Allah than the weak believer. So how we can, inshallah, become the strong believers and have a healthy, meaningful life, this topic will be discussed by Sheikh Hashim, Ahmad. He is an American-born scholar, American native alim, and is a teacher for many years. He holds a degree from Jamia al-Qura University in Makkah al-Mukarramah with a specialization in Ulum al-Quran and Hadith, and an MA in Islamic culture from University of Sindh in Pakistan. And he has ijazat from many traditional scholars with whom he studied. In 1985, Sheikh Abdullah Aziz bin Baz, Chief Mufti of Saudi Arabia, sent him to Jamiat al-Ulum al-Islamiyya bin Nouri town in Karachi to go and teach there, and other institutes in Karachi he taught. And in 1997, he formed his own company, Al-Khair Creative Quality Wear, which provides beneficial products aligned with a healthy, meaningful lifestyle. He developed a business model based on Islamic and professional excellence, known as the Abudiya business model. So he heads that trust as well, UBM Trust, and he lectures and presents throughout the world. Before Islam, he was a professional musician from Los Angeles, California, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala guided him. He left America in 1970, and he accepted Islam in Ethiopia in 1971. Then he went to Yemen, and then from there to Makkah to Pakistan. So he is visiting us, a great opportunity for us to benefit. Please come closer together, inshallah, and let us afford him our full attention. Jazakullah.
Okay, this is working, okay. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wa salatu wa salam ala Sayyid al-Mursaleen wa ala alihi wa sahabati ajmain amma ba'd. Who's manning this ship here? Who's your IT guy? Can we put this on presentation mode so we can see that? You know how to do that? Who's the IT whiz? Not me. Actually, in Karachi, what we do, if we have an IT problem, we look for the youngest person around and say, come on, and they'll fix it for you. Now, people like me, they don't know anything about it. Can we put this on the presentation mode so we get time? Which one is this? This whole presentation. Somebody should know how to do that. Easy. There you go. Good, good, good. Provided it's showing up here. Is it showing up? What's going on? Where's the IT guy? Okay, anyway, while he's getting this set up properly, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wassalatu wassalamu ala Sayyid al-Mursaleen wa ala alihi wa sahabati ajmain amma ba'd. Where's that fellow that was originally, what's his name? Guy in the office? Huh? Yeah, where's Uthman? Uthman, can you fix this up? You got it now? No, that's not going to work. Let's go back to where it was. All right, okay. So, As Mufti Minhaj was saying, that actually I spent many years, in the teaching in Islamic institutions, and what dawned on me after a period of time is that all these things that we learn in the madrasa, that we're learning them and teaching them, it's basically revolving among students and teachers. It's not getting out into the common public. So what we need to do, I felt, is that we need to provide mediums that the people outside the madrasa can, hands-on stuff that they can takeaways that they can put practically immediately into their life, so that we can change our lifestyle. We can start living a life that Islam actually teaches us to do. So from that standpoint, I started, developing these workshops and these type of presentations. And so I'll tell you a bit more as we go on. So it's a long workshop series, which we have 6 different modules, and we'll talk a little bit more about that. So that's how this sort of intervention began. So, Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Before we get started, as Mufti Minhaj mentioned, I'm a convert Muslim, revert Muslim, new, whatever you want to call me, So, actually, I still consider myself like that. I'm still trying to, I'm still a student. I'm trying to learn. So, since most of you are actually original Muslims, right? Born in the Muslim. So I want to learn from you all today. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask 2 questions, okay? And then we're going to proceed. Now those 2 questions are very straightforward questions, and I've been asking these questions for the past over 50 years. So the first question is, and we don't need ground rules because, well, you do have I hope that everybody has their telephones off, yeah? Mobile phones are away, off, silent, out of sight, out of mind, inshallah. Well, it's very distractive. So please turn your phones off, put them out away for a little while. 20 years ago we didn't even have them. The President of the United States was running the country quite well without a mobile phone. Do you believe that? Yeah, so it is possible to live without them for the next hour, hour and a half. Please, thank you very much. So, Jazakumullahu Khairun. Okay, why am I here? Now, I don't mean why am I here in the masjid. I mean, why am I here in this world? What's the purpose of my life? Why am I here? What's the purpose of my life? So generally what we do, we have, people think about that and they write it down. So you might want to write this down if you have a paper in hand, because this is something that's probably very useful for the rest of your life. So, why am I here? What's the purpose of my life? Can anybody answer that for me? Like, it's not a set answer, perhaps, whatever you feel that is your purpose of life. Who would like to share that with us? We have purpose of life, right? Huh? Well, actually, as a matter of fact, I've met many people in many of these sessions. Maybe, but I'm not sure. Yeah, we get a lot of that. So, what do you have to say about that? Yeah. Okay, wonderful. Yes. Excuse me? Doing good deeds and have success and whatnot, yes. To worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Great. That's Allahu Akbar. Yeah. Wow, absolutely. Now, it's interesting that, for most of you, pretty much I think we'd get an answer like that. But do you know that that's not an answer that you are capable of giving as an individual, as a human being, from your intellect? Now, to illustrate that, philosophers, throughout history, this has been, the biggest question. What's the purpose of existence? Now, unless they were guided by, Wahi Samawi, they had no answer. when I was a young kid, I used to ask this. That's, what is the purpose? So my father used to say, well, there's no purpose. Enjoy the life. As one of them used to say, well, when you're dead, you're done, so let the good times roll. Just enjoy it. Have a great time. But you know what? It ends up not being a great time. So people end up with depression, they end up with stress, they end up in mental hospitals because they don't have the answer to this question. After I accepted Islam and I found the answer to this question, I didn't find it. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala showed me. It was His kindness, otherwise it had nothing to do with me. So I used to ask this question, and I asked my relatives when I came back to America, and I kept asking, okay, what is your purpose? So I asked my cousins, who were at that time students in Harvard and MIT, no clue. So imagine that. Harvard is supposed to be a, pretty high-class institute of higher learning, as they say. However, this is quite interesting when you look at that educational process from Harvard, and you don't get into Harvard just like that. You went to the best high school, and you did the best, and junior high school, and grade school, and from the very beginning of the educational process to the end of it, the best of the best, and the end result of it, I don't know why I exist. That's very serious. What do you think? Extremely serious. So, however, on the same token, I can go in a village in Pakistan or in Yemen or in Somalia or anywhere in the Muslim world and take a little child, and I've done this, and I've done this on many occasions. Take a little child who's totally uneducated, illiterate, and ask them, why do you exist? He said, to worship my Lord. In Urdu, he'd say, Allah ke ibadat ke liye. Small kids. And Harvard University graduates don't know, they haven't got a clue. If you ask a small Arab kid, لماذا خلقت؟ من أجل عبادة ربي. Yeah, they'll tell you straight off. So, number one, let's start off the session with shukr lillah, that we know why we're here. Otherwise, this is a dilemma that the human intellect cannot answer. So, first of all, we should start with alhamdulillah, alhamdulillah, thumma alhamdulillah. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us the qadr of shukr, of having this understanding by His fadl. So, and that is, now in this series, what's happening? You can put it on that one? Not really. It's not. It would have been nice, but it's not necessary. Yeah. Okay, before we move any farther, I have another I've coined an expression which I call a paradigm inversion. Probably you've heard of a paradigm shift. Have you heard of that? Paradigm shift. Paradigm is a pretty much new word. Actually, when we were kids, we never heard that word. Somewhere along the line, it, weaseled its way into the English language. But basically, paradigm, perception of things. So, a paradigm shift is like, I have this thing here and I shift it over here. But actually, what we're talking about here is a paradigm inversion, 180-degree inversion. So, inversion, and a lot of times, to live a meaningful lifestyle and a healthy lifestyle, a lot of times this is exactly what we need to do. So we've got basically two bases of life, two basic concepts or perceptions of a basis of life, our lifestyle. So the first one we would call it, I call it a material paradigm. A material paradigm outlook on life. It's about money, it's about material. Get an education, get a job, get money, big house, big, and then what? Well, not much. But anyway, that's called the material paradigm. And it kind of looks like this, if you want to actually what do you see? Huh? Upside down tree. Oh yeah? Is that all? What else? Huh? Building upside down. If you look closely, the whole world is upside down, right? So basically, if you make your basis of life material, it's all about material. We come from material, it's about material, amass material, that's what it's all about. So that's what it looks like, sort of. Then we have another paradigm or perception as a basis of life, which is Abudiya paradigm. Now this word Abudiya, those who speak Arabic language, they would be familiar with this word, and those who don't, then they might not be familiar with this word, and we're going to explain it in detail a little bit down the line. But basically it's about, Abudiya is like ibadah. You all know ibadat, right? So living a life of ibadat, slavery towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that is another way of life, and that kind of looks like this. If you want to sort of, make a graphic illustration. So what is that? Now what do you see? Are you seeing that? What do you see now here? What? It's right side up. So actually what happens, we need to, and that's what we need to do. We have all been brought up from day one to live on this paradigm, this material paradigm. It's about money. The first thing they do when they send you now to these small schools, these small kids, get them immediately aligned with material, make money, get a good education. Depends on your definition of good. Good for making money, good for becoming a part in the machinery of, of material progress. But actually, as material goes on progressing, we find the human being himself digressing drastically. So we're going to use this expression from time to time, so we might even say a PI, paradigm inversion. So just keep that with you, okay? So here is actually, so as I said, human intellect cannot come to this conclusion. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, knowing full well, He has in no uncertain terms has defined the purpose of our existence. This is the purpose of our existence. Very, very clearly, very simply, nothing more and nothing less. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم وما خلقت الجن والإنس إلا ليعبدون. I have not created jinn and mankind except for my, here again, Abudiya. Illa liya'budun. Let's go back to this Arabic statement. Okay? So, the key is this word here. That's why I kept it in another. Liya'budun. Liya'budun. This is the reason why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created the jinn and the men. Liya'budun. To ya'budu. Meaning, continuously be engaged in Abudiya. Ya'budun. It comes from abd. You understand abd? Slave. Continuously exercising one's position of being a slave. So to do that, first of all, we have to recognize that we are slaves. We have a master. We have to recognize our master and our Lord, and that we are his slaves. And continuously, we are attentive to that fact, and continuously we are looking for what does my master want from me, and we do that. لِيَعْبُدُونَ. This is what we call in the Arabic language فعل مضارع. فعل مضارع is a continuous tense. Continuously. So, in the masjid, ya'budun. In the workplace, ya'budun. In the fields, ya'budun. In the social services, ya'budun. In the shop, ya'budun. A carpenter in his carpentry, ya'budun. In everything that we do, ya'budun. So, it has quite a huge scope. When we hear that, and so some people say, well, Shaykh, what are you talking about? Come on, really. Illa liya'budun, only for worship? Because usually they translate this as worship. And perhaps loosely you could translate that because the English language is not very precise, not like the Arabic language. It's a language of precision. So Allah hasn't created us except like to pray or to do zikr and read Quran and what about the rest of the things that real people do? Real life, as they say. Like that's not real life, So look. We're going to talk about that. There's a difference between ibadah and ibadat, which we know as ibadat, or we call ibadat, which are the technical, traditional, solely, the sole acts of worship. We have no other, like salat and zikr and so forth, which are solely acts of worship towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But actually, everything that we do is supposed to be an act of worship. And we'll talk about that in detail, how we can do that, inshallah. So this is why we have been created, not for any other purpose, you know. So now we're going to understand this Abudiya is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is there for His obedience and servitude, but out of His love and reverence. But one is that you serve and you're obedient because you have to, and one is because you want to, right? For example, let's suppose that a thief, you know, does a heist. You know what a heist? You know, bank robbery, and he's running down now the street like you have in the Hollywood flicks, and so now then, you know, the police come from the front, and a jeep pulls up from behind, and a helicopter comes from the top, and your SWAT team is, you know, they're all aiming. You know, they got 50 caliber machine guns and Kalashnikovs and all these sniper rifles pointing at his head. Now the poor guy, what is he going to do? What is he going to do? He'll surrender, right? Now, does he do that because of the fact that he loves, you know, the Chicago police and the SWAT team, and he really has so much reverence and awe for them that he's going to just, or is it just because he has to? Yeah? So this obedience and servitude to Allah is not because we have to, it's because we want to, you know? And we're going to talk about this a little bit more when we talk about a few of the terms that we as Muslims say, and we need to understand what they mean really. And then we can really understand what this Abudiya is all about. So the first term that we want to identify and understand very correctly is the term of Islam. What does Islam mean? I mean, what is the actual meaning? It's a Deen, it's a religion. Okay, yeah, but what does it mean? What is actually the meaning of it? What do you think? Peace. Well, a lot of people say that, but it's not really peace. It comes from the same root, but that's salama and salam. But Islam is another thing. Aslama yuslimu islama fahuwa Muslim. That's a different thing. It's connected. You won't have salama without Islam, that's for sure. But Islam is actually something specifically, is another thing specific. So what would that thing be? Yeah. Submission, exactly. Submission to Allah. And as we said before, it's submission out of love and reverence, not like you're a thief, you know, submitting to the police force. And for that reason, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us intelligence. Now we have another module where we talk about this in detail. Why did Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us intelligence? So that we can develop a lot of interesting gadgets like iPhones and laptops and projectors and atom bombs and all types of destructive and destructive things. Is that primarily, or to be very clever in how and how much of money we can, you know, accrue? No, not at all. The primary reason why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us intelligence, that we use it to know Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in such a way that no other creation can. He's given us eyes. Those eyes are to reflect on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's greatness, which we can see with our eyes. We have been given intelligence to think, ponder over the creation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, ponder over this system that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created throughout the universe. That's the primary reason that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us an intelligence above and beyond the intelligence of any other creature. And that gives us our superiority, because we are able, with that intelligence, with the tawfiq of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to know Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala better than any creation, and then worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in a more complete and holistic way than any of His creation. But unfortunately, we're busy with other things. So, Abudiya, the first thing we have to understand about Abudiya is, the basis of it is Islam, which is submission to Allah. So Islam is not a concept, it is not a theory, it is not a religion, it is a condition, a state of mind and heart. As we say in the Arabic language, kayfiyah. In Urdu you would say kayfiyat, a kayfiyat of submission. Okay, so the next thing we need to know is, what is a Muslim? What's a Muslim then? If that's what Islam is, so what's a Muslim? Huh? Exactly. It's the active participle. It's the one who submits to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So it's not like, okay, on my, identity card, Muslim, and usually in the Muslim countries, Diyana, Deeniyat in Urdu, Islam. Sorry. Islam is not on a card. It's not, in your inheritance. It's not a race, It is a condition of mind and heart. A condition of, so one who submits to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and tries to obey and submit to what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants him to do, that's what you call him a Muslim. If not, then, we've got a problem here, right? So somebody said, okay, well, we got Muslims, they do some things, they don't do some things, they hardly do anything, which is actually in Islam. So he's not a Muslim, right? No, you can't say that. We have Muslim and we have a Muslim. They're not all on one level, right? They have different levels. Like we have somebody's alive, right? Somebody's alive, I mean in the fullest sense of the word, very healthy, strong, able, he's carrying out his responsibilities, he's earning, he's supporting his family, he's working in the community, might be, the president of the country. He's alive, right? We got another guy that's in ICU. Poor guy, He can't eat, he can't talk, he can't walk, he can't do anything, and he's, but his heart is still pumping. So suppose we say, look, this guy's useless, So, why waste the time? Just, put him in the qabr and let's get done with it, right? What if we did that? Is that okay? And if we did that, what do we do? We're killers, right? That's murder. Because we've killed a living person, right? So that person is alive and he's alive, but there's a big difference between the two lives, isn't it? That life is quite different than this. So similarly in Islam, somebody's condition of Islam, power of Islam is going to be very high and somebody's very low, but they're still a Muslim, alhamdulillah. So, don't misunderstand that like some of our, some of those who consider themselves Muslims are doing now in this day and age. So let's be careful. The last thing we need to understand is Deen. We say that a lot also, right? Deen. So Deen, what is that? What? Guidance. Well, Deen is guidance, that's for sure, but I mean, how would we define it? Way of life. Okay. Can we be more specific? Otherwise somebody say, well, in a sense, in language, yes, that's true, but the Deen that we're talking about, the Deen of Islam, so what is that? Huh? Practice. Well, since Islam is submission and a Muslim is one who does it, so what is Deen? Deen is basically that total system of submission. The total system of submission, right? Which gives us a very large scope. So the scope of Deen, all activities of life, your trade, your profession, at home, on the street, in the market, wherever you are, waking, sleeping, whatever. Every activity of life, it's covered in the scope of Deen, as well as all roles in life. Not just your life as, your religious activities, your profession, your trade, your role as a father, your role as a mother, your role as a child, your role as a brother, sister, neighbor, relative. You might have community, connections or responsibilities. So any role that you actually have, all those roles, that's also covered under the scope of Deen. Now the trick is that you have to balance all those roles. That's a big trick. Huh? Usually we're star performers in something. If somebody's a star performer, for example, in sports or in entertainment or in business, he's right up in 500 in Fortune 500, right? Wow, Now, if we ask his wife, okay, what kind of fortune are you experiencing out of that? She'll say, come on, don't ask silly questions, Or you talk to his relatives or perhaps his business associates, So maybe we're a star in a particular role, but we are severely lacking in other roles. This is not okay. We have to perform with a balance in all those roles. And for that, someone might say, that, well, that's nearly impossible. I mean, we only have 24 hours a day and we need to put our attention. That's not, look, Nabi Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam had much more responsibilities than all of us put together, isn't it? And he was a perfect role model for everything. لَقَدْ كَانَ لَكُمْ فِي رَسُولِ اللَّهِ أُسْوَةٌ حَسَنَةٌ. You have in the example of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam the best of examples. But the Quran doesn't say in what. So it's for us to question, so in what? Yeah, so in what was he the best example? The answer being, in everything. How many of you are married? Those who are not, inshallah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give tawfiq. Suppose we send a questionnaire to your wives, okay? How do you rate your husband from 1 to 10? How many of you are pretty sure that you'll get, 8 and above? I don't raise my hand, by the way. Really? That's good. Because you have a nice wife, or you actually... Well, so it's not many people that really think that they could get that. Well, Nabi alayhi salatu wasalam, at certain points in his life, he had 9 wives. 9. Now, if we send a questionnaire to the Ummahat al-Mu'mineen, how do you rate your husband from 1 to 10? So what are you talking about, 1 to 10? You need to put about 3, 4 more zeros. Excellence upon excellence upon excellence. 9 wives. Perfection. Excellence. We can't perform and balance with 1. 9. And that's not all he was doing. You would think, well, that's all he does. That's not all he was doing. He was prophet, he was a Rasul, he was commander-in-chief of the armed forces. He was the ultimate leader. He was a father, he was a husband, he was a neighbor, he was a companion. All these roles he was performing with excellence, with perfection. Now, there's another presentation that we made that shows how actually Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam lived his life. And the interesting thing is that Nabi Wasallam's life, if you look at it from morning to night, it's not that stressy life that we live. It's a very natural, organic life which deals with all of those roles. And we'll only know that if we really start looking seriously into Sirah. So I strongly suggest to myself and to all of us, we really need to keep our eye pinned on the Sirah of Rasulullah. That should be a continuous study for every Muslim and Muslimah as well. So we need to learn that balance. It's a tricky thing to do. May Allah give us all tawfiq. So at least we need to be performing what we would say the minimum performance level, It would be difficult to perform excellent in perfection in all roles like Nabi alayhi, but at least we need to know the ahkam al-shar'iyyah. We need to know, go to our scholars and our ulama and find out as a father to what's the minimum performance level. I need to at least reach that. And as a person in business or in my profession, as a neighbor. And being a neighbor here in America, you would have neighbors that are Muslims, we have neighbors that are non-Muslims. And they all have hukuk, and they all have their rights and their responsibilities. And we need to know that. We need to know that, and we need to perform that. And that is what Abudiya is all about, knowing it and performing it. So, in other words, Deen is basically an operational application of this Abudiya, of understanding that we're slaves of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We are not living as free men in this world and free women. We are bound by the injunctions that have been dictated to us by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, which doesn't increase Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the least. It is for our benefit and our benefit alone. If the entire humanity all became the most wretched of human beings, it wouldn't decrease in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's kingdom the least. And if we all became the most pious of people, it wouldn't increase in this. It's for us. So to be a slave and to be a grateful slave and be an appreciative slave, it is to the betterment of the slave himself. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant us all tawfiq. Say Ameen. So let's go back to the question, purpose of life. Would anybody like to revise their statement that we gave immediately? Sometimes people say, my purpose is to serve humanity, for example. We get that a lot. Well, that's a good thing to do. And Deen also wants you to serve humanity, but that is not the overriding purpose. The overriding purpose is to be Allah's slave and implement that. And being Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's slave and being a slave in the ummah of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that gives you an extra responsibility added onto that, and that is that you have to convey this system of life to everyone else. You see? So, as an individual, that is my purpose of life. And I'm also responsible as a Muslim to be a means of spreading this to the rest of humanity. and probably more by deed than by word. Words are cheap, as they say. Huh? Think about this. The Muslims went all over the world, yeah, in the very beginning of the Islamic history, and they were Arabs. They spoke Arabic language. They didn't speak other languages. They went from country to country. The whole countries accepted Islam. So did they have PP presentations like this? 3-hour, long, detailed bayans, wow, nothing. They had their amal, they had their akhlaq, they had their character. And wherever they went, people said, we want to be like you. And that's what they said, be like us. So that's what we need to do. So if we learn Abudiya and we start living the life of Abudiya, then everyone would like to be like us, Then your Islamophobia, it would, vanish. Why people have Islamophobia? Because they don't have Islamophobia, they have Muslim phobia. And in a lot of cases, they have the right to, because of the foolishness that we do. So if we find our condition, straightened, we need to straighten out ourselves first and foremostly. Okay. So, now we have a little exercise that we want to do, and we want to explain this in a little bit more detail. This whole concept of Abudiya, the whole holistic nature of Islam, and it deals with all aspects of life. So, if this comes into the life of a Muslim, so what happens? So this Muslim becomes a means of khair for himself and others, like the example that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions in this ayat of Quran. A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. Alam tara kayfa daraba Allahu mathalan kalimatan tayyibah ka shajaratin tayyibah asluha thabitun faruha fis sama. Okay? Did you not see how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has set forth a parable? A goodly saying is a goodly tree, for lack of any better words. In other words, the parable of a goodly saying, a kalimat tayyibah, and the meaning of kalimat tayyibah, as the Mufassirin say, kalimat la ilaha illallah, Muhammadur Rasulullah. And when this kalima is in the human being, and this human being becomes an abd, following Islam and Abudiya, permeates this human being, so he becomes like a goodly tree. A wonderful tree, productive tree. And how's that tree? Its roots are set firm and branches in the sky. Bringing forth its fruit at all times, no season, all the time. Different types of fruits. Different types of fruits. Throughout the season, throughout the year. By the leave of its Lord. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sends forth parables for the people that perchance they may reflect. They should reflect. Okay, that's one ayat. There's another ayat, okay, that we want to look at, and that is, A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim, لَقَدْ مَنَّ اللَّهُ عَلَى الْمُؤْمِنِينَ إِذْ بَعَثَ فِيهِمْ رَسُولًا مِنْ أَنفُسِهِمْ. Indeed, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala did confer a great favor upon the believers when He sent among them a messenger from among themselves, min anfusihim. Yatlu alayhim ayatihi, reciting to them the revelations of Allah, the ayats of Allah. Reciting to them, inviting them to Allah through the revelations of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And purifying them, وَيُزَكِّيهِمْ tazkiyah, tarbiyah. And teaching them the scripture and wisdom, ta'aleem, sharia, sunnah. Although before that they were in manifest error, in Jahiliyyah. Okay. Now, if we want to kind of have a graphic image of this, this is how it's sort of an idea of what you might have. And actually we have a little exercise that I want you all to do. We've got quite a good number here. So what I want you all to do is, by looking at this tree, okay, and then looking at these two ayats, one on top and one on the bottom, okay? Can you read that? Is that clear? Now the exercise is, actually here we actually need usually we have little manuals that we hand out to everybody, but you don't have that, but that's okay. So the exercise is basically this. What do you see here? That tree, what's going on? What's the basic overall message? What's the basic overall concept that we see here? Number two, we identify the parts of the tree. Number three, how did this tree bear fruit? What was the process from the beginning to the end? and what were the elements and the factors involved. Okay? So what I want you all to do is make some groups, like 5, 10 people, and just discuss this, and then we'll listen to one of the groups, 1 or 2 of them. What was your findings? What do you see here? What's the general, thing that we see? What's the general concept of this diagram, as it were? And how did this, what are the parts of the tree, and how did the tree bear fruit? What was the process? Okay? You got it? You thought I'm just going to sit here and do a lot of talk. Well, no, you have to actually, this is an interactive session. You're part of this whole process. We're all learning together, inshallah. Okay, so let's make some groups, say 5, 10 people together, our brothers here. Make a little group, okay? So what's the basic concept that we have here? We'll give you just 5 minutes, that's all. It's 9 o'clock now, say 9:05, okay? So just discuss this among yourselves. What's going on here, and then one of you will give us a sort of your findings. Present on behalf of your group. Understand the questions again? What's the basic concept? You want to take a picture of it? Yeah, use your IT there's the exercise. Take a picture of that with your phones. Yeah? There you go. So you don't need manuals, paperless workshop, mashallah. Yeah? So just take a picture of that and then do this little exercise. Got it? Good. Okay, now go back. Now I want you to now be looking at this carefully, because there's actually a lot of going on here. So you have to pay pretty close attention. Okay? Taking the ayats, putting them in context, and then looking at the tree, the diagram, and keep all the things in context here, and then let's see what you come up with. How are we doing? Okay? We ready to present? Or not? Okay, who's going to give us a little... Who would like to come up and give these our findings? Okay, which group? Who would like to come up and do that? Yeah, please. We want that mic.
Okay, Assalamu alaikum. Firstly, I don't want anybody to laugh at this, okay? So that's the condition. So, anyways. So, Masha, this is what we came up with our group over there. So, what do we see here? We came up with a term called the Deeni tree. That's what we came up with. So, basically, it's a tree that represents what we talked about as Deen. So, it encapsulates, or you have every part of your life represented by the tree. Is that sort of what we want? Anything else you want to add? Is that okay? Okay. Parts of the tree, the way we looked at it was, depending on how you look at it, if you want to look at the roots, obviously you have three different roots, Talim, Dawa, and Tarbiyah. So that's how we came up with parts of the tree, depending on how you want to look at it. So if you want to look at the branches, then the branches of the tree are Adab, Akhlaq, Ibadat. So that's how...
So you basically have roots, and then you have...
Yeah, so every aspect, roots, branches, trunk, roots, trunk, branches, fruits. So those were, is that okay, guys? Any?
Of course, there are other components, but we didn't put them in here. You've got leaves, you've got bark, you've got air, but these are the main things that's pictured here.
Ji.
It's enough for us to digest.
Then how did the tree bear fruit? Again, what we came up was it's got to be a process. I think that sort of ties in with the next question, process from beginning to end. So in a way, the way that the tree bears fruit is it needs to have strong roots, then a strong trunk, and a strong, healthy, I guess we could classify different adjectives, but the concept of our group was you need everything strong. I mean, you can't just end up with a fruit. You need to start.
So does it start, is it like, are these, for example, is this actually in order, or it's just all together, it could be before?
I don't know, I mean, we didn't think to that level, but we just...
Okay, it goes up. So are these things, they all just happen at the same time, or just like, does it move up incrementally from here, because there are people on hundreds of... Does this work? Oh, here. So, yeah. So does this, is this a process that goes from one step to the other, or these are just all, you think, they just happen all together?
I think we didn't think about that to that level. We didn't discuss it to that level.
Yeah, what do you think? There's a sequence. Absolutely. Yeah, okay, good. Okay.
So anything else? That was a process, right, we talked about? Did I miss out anything? No, we're good. And what were the elements, factors? I guess it's each one of those. So it depends again, if we look at the if we look at the elements of roots, we came up with these, the Talim, Dawa, Tarbiyah. if you look at an element of the trunk with the elements of Abudiya is the Sunnah Sharia. So that was the way we came up with elements of the branch is Adab, Akhlaq. So that was how we classify. Is that okay? Is that in line with what? Yeah, that was about it.
Wonderful. Alhamdulillah. Anyone would like to add something? Any more finding? Yeah, please. Yeah, share that because we have ladies in the back also and everyone can hear. Yeah, right there. We didn't have that. Okay, anyway.
I'm going to read my questions just to make sure that I remember. So I think this is my assessment.
Yeah.
I think this is trying to give us the hints towards the answer of the question that you have, which is, what is the purpose of life? And I think the starting off point is God always existed, always will. There's a starting point from which we get ta'aleem, dawah, and tarbiyat, and you have intellectual curiosity about fikr. You think about, why am I here? You go through the sequence of the trunk, and if you have the right balance in terms of nurturing these branches which bear these fruits, that's the balance I think you were referring to in life. And so your adabs, amals, iqaq, ibadat, and your huquq al-ibad and huquq al-iman. Those are things that I think that you're referring to. Is that?
Wonderful.
Okay.
Well, actually, number one, we have to say that actually, number one, this is a mithal, this is an example, a parable, which Allah has mentioned. So what is the entire and holistic meaning and the depth of meaning which this parable has? Allah knows. Because His wisdom and His knowledge is unlimited. Our wisdom and knowledge is highly limited. Even if we put all the books of tafsir together, still it's a qatra fil bahr. It's a drop in the ocean. Okay, so let me give you my take on this, whatever that's worth. I used to have a teacher who used to say, "Aqulu ana wa a'udhu billahi min ana." I say that me, and I seek refuge from Allah from me. You know, Allah help us from ourselves. Now, so basically, this is the personification of a mu'min. It is a personification of a mu'min, because actually it's not simply the kalima without context, it's the kalima in the context of being in a human being, in a mu'min. So the example of a mu'min, when he has kalima in his life, he has iman in his life, he has ubudiya, is actually the color of his existence. So this is what it ends up looking like. But yes, there are different parts of the tree, and there is a process, definitely. Now, the process is from bottom up. It's not from top down, it's bottom up. And from the bottom we see roots. And those roots need nourishment, isn't it? So the basis of that tree, and the roots of this tree, as is mentioned, Thabitun. These roots are very, very well immersed into the soil, very, very well placed and very, very firmly placed in the soil. And they have to be nurtured continuously by macronutrients. Now it's very interesting that a tree, those who are in biology, they can, verify this. The trees, in fact, all plants have 3 macronutrients: nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium, right? And then there's micronutrients, which are other elements and vitamins and minerals that trees need. But they have 3 macronutrients, right? It's also interesting that the human being has 3 macronutrients, which are protein, fat, and carbohydrates. So just as a tree has 3 macronutrients, the human being has 3 macronutrients. And this particular tree, its macronutrients are what? Da'wat, ta'aleem, tarbiyah. يَتْلُو عَلَيْهِمْ آيَاتِهِ وَيُزَكِّيهِمْ يُعَلِّمُهُمُ الْكِتَابَ. This is the portfolio of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. In management terms, we say, his JD, job description. So that is the job description of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. These are his 3 portfolios, as it were. Dawat. What is dawat? People say everything is dawat. No, everything is not dawat. Dawat ilallah. To call to Allah, to invite people to Allah. 1. Number two, to invite people to amal that connects you with Allah. Number two. Number three, to invite people, human beings, to akhirat, as opposed to this world. So that's da'wat. To invite people to Allah, to the amal that connects them to Allah, to invite them to the guest house of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala known as Jannah. So this is da'wat. So that includes explaining the greatness of Allah, the adamat of Allah, and giving attention towards the ni'mat of Allah, etc. So we find that this is the first thing that prophets used to start with. So that's your first macronutrient, and that's the major one. Now once people wake up and they say, yo, there is our creator, we are slaves, so now we need to know how to worship him, then ta'aleem kicks in. Ta'aleem here, we mean by ta'aleem to teach them kitab wal hikmah, as the Quran says. Teach them the Quran, the ahkam of Quran, what the Quran, the lifestyle, and the whole system of life which the Quran teaches, and which Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam explained and illustrated by his life. However, along with that, the human being is a human being, and he's full of diseases, spiritual diseases, character diseases. You know, like greed, jealousy, haste, you know, self-preference, love of oneself, love of the world. So that requires a special type of medication or a special type of treatment, which is, we'll call it tarbiyah or tazkiyah, which is a very specialized branch of instruction and very specialized branch of teaching and learning. So all these three have to be taking place. Da'wat has to continue. Ta'aleem has three macronutrients, and they have to be at proper balances as well. Just da'wat, no ta'aleem and tarbiyah, you're going to have a big problem. No da'wat, only tarbiyah, ta'aleem, it's going to die. Or only ta'aleem, no tarbiyah, big head. Only tarbiyah, no ta'aleem, off the track. So, just as a human being, too much carbohydrate, too much carbohydrates, too much fat, too much protein, you're going to go off balance. So similarly, these have to be present in a Muslim's life daily nutrients, daily da'wat, daily ta'aleem, daily tarbiyah. Without that, the tree is not going to exist, much let alone grow and give fruit. Okay, is this clear? Huh? Well, there's two major ways of invitation. One is what we say da'wah qawliya or da'wah fi'liya, amaliya. One is to invite people by your word. Another is to invite people by your action. What do you think is stronger? A picture is worth at least minimum. So, and as I said before, this is how Islam spread. It didn't spread by a lot of talk. It spread by a lot of action. People were impressed by us. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make us like that again. Okay, now, when this da'wat starts, the first thing that happens is start thinking. Now, if we look at ourselves right now, in this session, our mode of thinking is probably different than it was at the office today. What do you think? Is it true? Why? The context. The external influences. We're in an environment. We're in the masjid. We're hearing about Allah. We're hearing about Deen. We're hearing about Akhirat. You know, we're in the company of the Malaika, even though we don't realize that, perhaps. So the environment is actually causing us to start thinking differently. So the first thing that happens with this da'wah is people start thinking, oh, there's Allah. Imam Ghazali, he calls it a tanabbuh. You know, we're living a life of ghafla, and all of a sudden we come, oh, there is Allah. There's death. There's maut. There's qabr. There's hashr. There's nashr. What am I doing about it? You know? So, first thing that happens, we start thinking, and then we start looking around at the creation. There's a sky. There's an earth. There's millions of types of creations out there. There's billions of light years of expansiveness in the universe, and for what? Why did Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala create? That's a good question. Billions and billions of light years of expansive space. For what? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala needs any of that? Is there anybody else out there? Well, according to Hollywood, yes, but I don't know. We don't. Until now, we haven't really seen anybody. So basically, it's kind of like It's just so that we look up and say, Subhanallah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created all of that for us to reflect, to make fikr. And we did a little exercise with the students today on that. If we had more time, we'd do that here as well, but we'll do that another time, inshallah. So, with this dawah continuously going on, so people start thinking and they start looking at the creation and making and reflecting, and then that reflection takes them towards the Creator. The creation is a reflection of the Creator. So now they start understanding about their Creator, His power, His qudrat, His ni'mat, His azmat, His... And as that process continues, the dawah is continuing, the ta'aleem is continuing, and so fikr turns into some ma'rifat, and then that ma'rifat grows into iman. And iman, the process is continuing. And the iman turns into yaqeen. Now if the process stops, then what happens? Right? But if the process continues, so the tree continues to grow. And then ultimately we'll get ikhlas. People say, yeah, you have to do everything for the sake of Allah. It's that easy? Is it that easy? Just say, okay, do everything for the sake of Allah. Okay, from today I'm doing everything for the sake of Allah. Is it like that? You know, our Sheikh Said Khan, rahmatullahi alayhi, you know, one time I asked him, I said, look, how do we get ikhlas? He said, well, I think you better ask somebody who has it. Which means what? Can any of us really say, you know, such as I did with ikhlas? Can you really say that? Any salat, any Quran, anything? Any kind of riyah, any kind of something didn't creep in somewhere? That's why whenever we perform an action, it always ends up with istighfar, right? After salat, inni dhalamtu nafsin dhalman kathir. I've wronged myself a great wrong. You're offering salat, it's the greatest of amal. What wrong did you do? The salat that I was supposed to offer, did I offer that salat? With that ikhlas so that's a very, very different, that's the last maqam actually, as a matter of fact. To be mukhlis, you know? Subhanallah. May Allah make us mukhlisin. Allah Akbar. And then, if we learn ikhlas with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you know, people say, you hear this in Pakistan a lot. Asal mein jo hai, wo hukuk al-ibad. You know, I hear this all the time, you know? Right? Actually, it's the rights of the people. That's the main thing. Okay, the people are what? The people are creation of who? They're Allah's creation. The asl is the hukuk of the Creator. And since the Creator has said, these are my creation, give them these and these and these rights, therefore they have rights. If we don't know the Creator and don't give the Creator His rights, we're going to give rights to the creation? That's pretty weird, you know. It's not going to happen. And it doesn't happen. And that's why we see in the political arena, it just looks like hypocrisy from day one to the end. Why? Because the process is not there. How do you expect a person to lead a country or to lead a group or an organization without this process? It's impossible. With ikhlas, with sincerity, and nasiha. Well-wishing, having a spirit of well-wishing for one's own fellow brethren, you know, whether they're Muslims or whoever they are. This will come when we believe that these are Allah's creation. Al-Khalq Allah. The entire creation, the entire humanity is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's family. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala loves those best who are best to His family, meaning all of humanity. Now who's going to do that? One who has gone through this process. He's going to do that. Nobody else in the world can do that. It's impossible. Even if it looks like it's going on, in reality, it's not happening. And when times get rough, then see what happens. You know? Well, we've seen what happens in the history of Sahaba and our mukhlis, you know, Muslim, that it really happens. People give their lives for others, prefer others. يُؤْثِرُونَ عَلَىٰ أَنفُسِهِمْ وَلَوْ كَانَ بِهِمْ خَصَاصَةٌ. In the straitened and most straitened of situations, they will prefer others over themselves. That happens when this process is going on. And then you will see the ability to implement Sharia. You know, I first came to Pakistan, you know, 1985. to live in. I was there before, but when I came there to live there. So now there was this tahriq tanfidh al-sharia, you know, and it was a good intention, you know, that we should implement sharia in the country. So my question was, I said, okay, on who? On the trees, on the streets, on the buildings? Because the people are not ready to do that. Can we force people to follow sharia? As I mentioned this morning, legislature never changed any society. Did legislature, by passing a law, did that change any society in the history of humanity? For example, there was legislation that was passed in America in the 1920s, prohibition of alcohol. Did that change the stance of society with alcohol? It just made it worse. That's when your mafia came to existence. That's how if you know the history, that's where the mafia comes from. So if we can't get it legally, we'll get it illegally. What's the problem? No issue. And then it got totally out of hand, and then that was called the Roaring Twenties. Roaring with what? Did you ever heard this expression, the Roaring Twenties? Maybe not. You know, old people like me, we did. Roaring Twenties. It was roaring with machine gun fire. Chicago. It was roaring with machine gun fire. The different groups, you know, it's like Karachi, you know. These different gangs were just mowing each other down with machine guns right on the streets of Chicago, New York, Los Angeles, San Francisco, all over the country. Why? Because we tried to change society with legislature. We didn't try and change society with structure. We didn't try and change the society with the process. This is the process. You want to change society? إِنَّ اللَّهَ لَا يُغَيِّرُ مَا بِقَوْمٍ حَتَّى يُغَيِّرُ مَا بِأَنفُسِهِمْ. Allah doesn't change the condition of a people until they change which is in them. Not without them. Don't pass laws. Yes, doesn't mean that laws and legislature is not necessary. It is necessary as a protective measure, not as a constructive measure. You don't construct with legislature, you protect with legislature. We need to understand that. Right? So, if we go through and then we see that all the legislature in Islam came when? In Makkah? Did we get legislature in Makkah? None. Absolutely zero. Even Salat, the worship, the form that we have now, that came in the very end of the Meccan period. All other rules and regulations, all the other ahkam al-sharia, they all came in Medina. And the tougher they were, the later they came. So when prohibition came in Medina, the people who had it in their mouth, they spit it. The people who had it in their hand, they threw it. The people who had it in their houses, they threw it in the streets. A man was coming from Syria with a caravan of wine. Caravan. You know? Some Sahabi was going out, he was on the way, he said, hey, you didn't hear this? You didn't know that the wine is not prohibited? Prohibited. Oh yeah? Now what did he do? Oh, let's go to Mufti Sahib and let's find some solution here. You know? It's masala. Nothing doing. Took out his dagger, tuck, 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 tuck. Wine prohibited? I don't need it. Khalas. His capital, his profit, the whole thing gone. That's when? That's legislature with process. So when you have a process where people want this legislature, the people will not accept. They will themselves say, Ya Rasulullah, cleanse me. I've committed such and such. Give me, you know, the punishment that has been prescribed to, that I can meet Allah clean, free from. That legislature works when you have the process. So if this process keeps on going, you know, dawah, ta'lim, tarbiyah, it goes on and on and on. So then also the whole tree becomes colored by the color of Abudiya. Abudiya becomes this entire tree. This whole is Islam, you know. The whole tree is colored in this color. So that's how a Muslim is. Then you see these branches coming out. Muasharat. Our relations with our relatives, our neighbors, etc. and so on. This is just an example. I mean, there's so many qualities, so many fruits that would come from that branch. Among them, kindness to relatives, good neighborly relations, family injunctions, applying those things, and so many others. Similarly, adab, individual manners, communal manners, you know, etiquettes, how we live with one another as very lofty human beings, transactional matters among one another. So this branch will also continue to grow, provided the process is continually going on. Muamalat, you know. are transactions, monetary transactions, one with another, according to the rules of Sharia, which are better for humanity. They're not, to give people a hard time. It's to systemize the transactions and the actions of human beings in the best possible manner, with the best possible and the highest form of equity, one with the other. So it's for our benefit. Akhlaq, ibadat. Now, these are the various branches of the tree. So all these various branches, and as the ulama mentioned, these 5 branches, of Deen. Ibadat, muamalat, muasharat, akhlaq and adab. These are the branches of Deen. Now, which of those branches happens to be on the top? Ibadat. Which of them? Ibadat. Salat, Som, Hajj, Zakat, right? Yeah? Okay, now, usually trees, there are different trees, but usually the first branches that appear in a tree are the bottom ones or the top ones? Top ones. There are trees but most trees actually, the ones that come out first, they end up at the top. So the top of the tree is going to be what? Ibadat. Ibadat. Okay, there's a very interesting hadith. We need to reflect on this a little bit. Nabi alayhi sallam says, Buni al-Islam ala khams. That Islam was built on 5 pillars. You all heard that hadith, I think? What are those 5 pillars? Kalima? Come on. Salat, Zakat, Hajj, Som, right? So, Nabi alayhi sallam says, Islam is built on 5 pillars. They're all ibadat. There's no muamalat, there's no muasharat, there's no adab, there's no akhlaq, there's no halal, no haram, no hudud. So where's all that? Problem? Maybe, maybe not. So how do we solve that problem? Deen is the whole system of life. Deen is 5 things, that's it. So how do we explain that one? What's that? Is a building just pillars? Suppose, this, suppose this Dar es Salaam Masjid, it must have some very strong pillars to hold up all this edifice here. So let's just suppose it's 20 pillars. So Dr. Saab, mashallah, puts up the 20 pillars, and in January, middle of January, snow and blizzard, he says, okay, we're going to have the grand opening of Dar es Salaam. So everybody comes, and there's only 20 pillars. Dr. Saab, are you eating properly? Are you okay? He said, what nonsense is this, I said, no. Islam is built on 5 pillars and this masjid is built on 20 pillars. There they are. I got a masjid. No, Dr. Saab, you didn't understand properly. It doesn't mean that, you don't have the pillars. Without pillars, can you build a masjid? Can you have, can it support the roof and all that? Obviously not. So just by building the pillars, you don't have the entire building. You have the foundation. However, without that foundation, can your buildings support? Suppose Dr. Saab says, you know what, we figured out that, all those 20 pillars, it's going to cost us about, $300,000, $400,000, $500,000. So we could save a lot of money just by, you don't even see them anymore. These are not the pillars. The pillars, you don't even, so let's just not make the pillars, forget about it. Let's just put the roof up and all that then. Again, grand opening. Everybody comes, 3,000 people come, Allahu Akbar, first salat, and then the whole roof caves in. First and last, iftitah and ikhtitam. What happened? We built the building, but we forgot to put in the foundation. So what happened? The roof caved in. The edifice, the building collapsed. This is what happens in most of these, Islamic movements. And they mean well, So a lot of these movements that take place, and they start out with very good intention, and then somewhere along the line they collapse utterly. And people, it's very confusing. Well, actually it's not that confusing, because the foundation wasn't built. So if we don't build that foundation, the rest of Islam is not going to be supported. So we have to have this, and that's why Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam says Islam is built on 5. So why these 5? Now that's another question. Why not these 5. Why not muamalat, muasharat, halal, haram? You know, why ibadat? Huh? Huh? Connect with the Creator, very good, absolutely. Because our life, our objective as a human being is to be a slave. And what's going to teach you to be a slave? Muamalat? Muasharat? Or ibadat? Huh. Putting your nose on the ground 5 times a day at least, that's going to teach you to be a slave. Taking that hard-earned money as we think, you know, it all came from Allah, but we think, you know, taking that out and paying the zakat, sadaqat, khairat, that's going to be. These are the activities that will teach us to be slaves. And when we learn slavery through these ibadat, then we'll be able to do muasharat, muamalat, akhlaq, and all the rest of it. Otherwise, no, it's not going to happen. You know, so if we start talking about, well, it's all about these things, you know, how we deal with others. How you deal with others depends on how you connected with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and became His slave. So that's why you'll never see our pious ancestors, you know, didn't offer salat or didn't offer, you know, Qadi Abu Yusuf, he was the Chief Justice, you know, at the height of the Islamic Khilafat, okay? You know, in his time. He had a daily routine of 200 nafal rakats. 200. You know, we don't have 20 rakats. And do you think we have as much responsibility and workload that he had? He was not only the Chief Justice, he was developing the whole justice system at that time. Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal, an Imam, we call him Imam Ahl Sunnah, Imam in Aqidah, Imam in Hadith, Imam in Fiqh, 300 rakats salat daily. Now actually if you add it up and you try and figure out mathematically, the day doesn't have enough time to do that. Really. So how did they do that? Well, they had a thing called barakah. They had a thing called barakah. We have no barakah in our time. You know, 5 times salat, no time. They had time for 300 rakats in the night. Uthman radiallahu ta'ala, he is the Khalifa, Rashida. And his empire, there's no empire in the world today that's the size of his. The whole night spent in 1 rakat, 1 Quran in 1 rakat every night. And then the next day he'd sleep all day? Or sleep up to dhuhr? Nothing doing. Daytime dedicated to the Rayat, and the nighttime dedicated to the Khaliq. Yeah. So if we want all this to happen, then we need this process and all this. So may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us all tawfiq. So this gives us a little idea, and we developed this model actually for our Abudiya business model, because actually we're teaching this to institutions, that in your institution you need to have systems that develop this. So you need trainings in all of this, and actually we developed a system for that. And so as Muslims used to be, wherever we are, this is our way of life. In our institutions, in our shops, in our, you know, in our factories, in our educational institutions, in our services, wherever we happen to be. All of this is going on. So we're developing, this process needs to be going on everywhere we are. Along with our earnings and our professions and our whatever that we're doing. Right? All of our roles in life. Okay? Is this clear? Inshallah? So hopefully this is a good takeaway for you. I took a picture, you can reflect on that. You can also share that when you go back home, hopefully your ladies also have attended, yeah? So when you go home, you can make a muzakara with them, so that you can go over these things and refresh ourselves, okay?
The whole lecture and the slides are on our website. What's that? The whole lecture and the slides are on.
Oh my goodness. I didn't even know that. I better be careful. Okay. So can we go back to what happened here? What happened here? Huh? Click on what? Where am I? Please, somebody help me out. You know, an old man, he doesn't know how to do these things. Huh? No, from here, it's not showing anything on the screen. Come on, IT guys. We were much better off with all these gadgets, weren't we? Huh? Yeah, well. Actually, it must be in some type of screensaver mode or something. Yeah, Allah. Where's, what's his name? Huh? Yeah. Sir. Connecting to meditation. What's the deal here? Can we just run it from that? Yeah. Okay. We'll just run it from this and I'll just, yeah. Is this on? Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Okay. Can we just go to the next slide? Okay, so that's exercise. Move along. Go ahead. Yeah, just go past this exercise. Okay. Okay, so now in summary, the purpose of life, after all of that, let's just summarize what we've done up to now. Summarize, purpose of life is what? Abudiya. And if we fulfill that purpose, what's the object then? What's in it for us? Allah's pleasure and Jannah. Allah's pleasure and Jannah. So it makes life worthwhile. So when we talk about a healthy, meaningful lifestyle, so meaningful, there you go. Okay, next. So actually, ultimately what happens, Ya ayyatuha an-nafs al-mutmainnah. Go ahead. Irji'i, O you soul at peace. Irji'i ila rabbiki radiyatan mardiyah. Return to your Lord, pleased and pleased with Him. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is pleased with you and you will be pleased with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Fadkhuli fi ibadi. Now look at this. Fadkhuli fi ibadi. Enter among my slaves. This is what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is going to say to the people who are going to Jannah. Enter among my who? Slaves. So those who adopt slavery as a lifestyle, they will have total freedom forever and ever and ever. And those who adopt a free lifestyle for a few moments of this worldly life, they'll have to be in very severe slavery forever and ever. So which option do you want? Which is a better A, option A or option B? For example, we give you option A. Option A is we'll make you king, for a year. Okay? Everything. The whole world is yours. And then for 80 years, we're going to put you in prison and beat you to death. Okay? But you can be king for a year. Okay, that's option A. Option B is we're going to put you in prison for a year and we're going to give you a really tough time. But then after 1 year, we're going to make you king for 80 years. That's option B. You have 10 seconds to choose option A or option B. Quick. Option B. Oh my God. You really messed up. Huh? No, you did right. So you would definitely want to have a little bit of punishment and then have a long term of pleasure is a much better proposition, isn't it? So we've only got a few moments here in this world. Suppose you live 100 years. So how long is that in the scheme of things? One day in Akhirat, 50,000 years. So 100 years, suppose, if you live that long, how long is that? It's 2.5 minutes. 2.5 minutes of life. So that's all we get. We get only one chance. So may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us all tawfiq and take this chance, because we have it today, we won't have it tomorrow. Okay, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us all tawfiq. Let's move on. Okay. فَادْخُلِي فِي عِبَادِي وَادْخُلِي جَنَّتِي. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant us all that. Enter into my paradise. So that's the end of that session. Next session, let's move along. Okay. Now, the actual title of our presentation was what? A healthy, meaningful lifestyle. So actually we're talking about a hayat al-tayyiba, a good, beautiful lifestyle. So what is a good, beautiful lifestyle? Go ahead. We've got healthy, we've got meaningful, we've got lifestyle. That's why we call it HML. Healthy, meaningful lifestyle. Yeah. In fact, I have a business in Karachi, which I call it the HML store. So I've created products, that kind of revolve around that. So what do these three elements imply? Like healthy. When you say healthy, what comes to mind? Huh? Huh? Good for you. Okay, what else? So-and-so is healthy. So what do you see? He's fit, strong, huh? What else? Oh, that's it? Huh? What's that? Free of diseases, yeah, that's right. What else? Huh? What's that? Benefits you. Yeah, being healthy benefits you. But when we say healthy, what do we think health is? What is health, by the way? Healthy body, yeah? What about a healthy mind? What about a healthy soul, ruh? What about a healthy emotions? That's not important? Very important. What about healthy social interactions? Important? What about a healthy environment? So actually we have a lot of, can we move forward then? So meaningful, that whole first session is about that, clear purpose of existence. So that's meaningful. So what about healthy? Well, the main point of health is a life of iman and amal salih. As Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, go ahead. من عمل صالحا من ذكر أو أنثى وهو مؤمن فلنحيينه حياة طيبة. Whoever does righteous works and he's a person of iman, he or she is a person of iman, ذكر أو أنثى, man or woman. Do righteous works, you have iman, you're going to have a beautiful life. So that's the basis of the whole thing as it is. Okay. So healthy now, actually, go ahead. Nabi Sallallahu actually encourages us to be healthy and strong. As Mufti Sahib has mentioned this hadith, al-mu'min qawi khayrun wa ahabbu ila Allah min al-mu'min al-da'if. The mu'min who is strong, keep on going. The strong believer is more virtuous and more beloved to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala than the weak one. So strong in what? Huh? Strong in? Iman, strong in? Body, strong in? Mind, strong in? Irada, strong in? Emotional character, a lot of strength. So, holistic health, go ahead. It basically kind of looks like this. So, we see that all of these are dimensions of health. The driver of all of them being spiritual health. Without spiritual health, the rest of it is not going to fit. Mata'un ilahin, it'll help you for a while, but actually, ultimately, the health of the human being is pivoted upon its spiritual health. So that's why we give it a highlight. Okay? So spiritual health. Then you have intellectual health. If you don't, have you ever heard this? If you don't use it, you lose it. If you don't use it, before, now we've got a lot of people sitting on chairs. Yeah, Muinbai, one time I came to, where was it? Somewhere in Maryland. All our brothers of Shura, they were sitting on chairs. Huh? I haven't seen these guys in a long time, I said, look at you guys. You're all on chairs. Aren't you ashamed of yourselves? Come on, sit on it. So one of them said, no, we've all become chairmen. If you guys are my friends, I give you a good, So, now, 30, 40 years ago, there was not a single chair. Do you remember 34, our older people, do you remember 34 years ago there was a chair in the masjid? There was no such thing. Because now we don't use our legs. We don't bend our legs. So if you don't use it, you're going to lose it. We don't walk anymore. We don't move. Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam says, you have 360 joints in your body. And every one of those joints, you need to give sadaqah for them every day. Yeah, because there's a great ni'mat. So 360 joints, suppose it's $1 a day. Suppose. $360 a day, that's pretty tough. Yeah? But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made it easy. So, a tasbihah is a sadaqah. Tahmeed is, say alhamdulillah sadaqah. Subhanallah sadaqah. La ilaha illallah sadaqah. Allahu Akbar sadaqah. Helping somebody, to smile with somebody, sadaqah. 2 rakats of salat al-duha, it's enough for the 360. Allahu Akbar. However, the point is, 360 joints in our body, we are created to sit. Was the engineering done so that we can sit all day long? Or we were engineered to move? We were engineered for movement. We weren't engineered to sit around all day. Sorry. So if we do that, we're going to lose it. So, similarly, our intelligence, if we don't use it, nurture it, exercise it, we lose it. All this dementia that's going on. You ever seen this now? Parkinson, Alzheimer's, all these dementia-based diseases. We're losing our minds. The brain deteriorates. Well, among the asbab is we don't use our minds anymore like we used to. We vegetate. We just sit there in front of these gadgets, mesmerized, but we don't use our brains actually. Now the kids especially, these children, this is a very serious matter. And we have a whole module on this because this is the medical dilemma of the 21st century. Not what I say, this is what scientists say now. It is. And among the manifold, detriments of it is that we don't use our brains, particularly the young kids. They just sit in front of these games, and they're just memorized by this. 24/7 entertainment, just, input. We don't read, we don't think, we don't discuss, we don't ponder, we don't analyze. So if we don't use the faculty of the intellect, then the intellect dries up and dissipates. So we need intellectual health as well, and then we have a whole discussion on that. Jismani health, a person who's got diabetes and blood pressure, and obesity and all that, he's going to do a lot of amal salih. He's going to do a lot of effort in the khidmat of Deen and khidmat of humanity. It's going to be very difficult. And if you're in good physical shape, isn't it going to be all the more easier? And then when we look into this module, then we'll see how Nabi Sallallahu took care of his health, how our aslaf took care of their health, and what they were capable of doing. It's mind-boggling. Inshallah, we'll do that at another time when we have more time, inshallah. Okay, similarly, emotional health. And we don't need to talk about that. Emotional, psychological problems, nafsani, problems now. There's so much and so manifold that almost, it's very rare to find somebody, it's almost impossible to find somebody without some level of depression, and stress out of control, in modern society. So we really need to look at that. How do we need to deal with that? Ijtimai, social health, our relations with others. If those relations are not healthy, then society becomes like a jahannam. And then you have all of that, but the environment is totally polluted, it's totally corrupted, it's toxic, it doesn't support human life, then what's the point? So we as Muslims need to be, if we want to be holistically healthy, to be a strong mu'min and be greater slaves and have a higher level of Abudiya, we need to be healthy in all of these areas. And now since I, accepted Islam to this day, it's quite shocking that even though our deen is the healthiest and strongest deen on the planet, we find Muslims are some of the most, sorry guys and gals, we're some of the most unhealthy people on the planet. The incidence of diabetes among Muslims. Did you know, by the way, how many Hyderabadis do we have? Congratulations, I heard that Hyderabad Deccan is now the heart disease capital of the world. Is that true, Dr. Saab? That's what I heard. Scientific reports. 1 out of 3 people has heart condition. I mean, doctors might say, well, it means more business for us, but that's not the way to look at it. Right? But it's a fact, actually. We see this in Pakistan, India. The incidence of diabetes is mind-boggling, staggering. Obesity, not. So, you know, and very fortunately, my mother is, she's 90 years old. She has no medical problem other than she's just getting old. She's bright, she's sharp as a pin. And so we were kind of brought up with these kind of concepts. Healthy living, good eating, nutrition, stuff like that, exercise, you know. So that's the fadl of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So we kind of grew up with that. But then when I accepted Islam, you know, and then when I first went in tabligh also, these guys, you know, 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock at night, dal chawal. Oh my God. How do you guys do this? You know, this is impossible. Come on, you know, really. Oh, you know, so I used to keep my little bag of stuff, you know, and then, okay, you guys go ahead with that. So unfortunately, there's a lot of awareness that we need to actually have, and we can be much better. So we need to focus. So for that, we made these workshops, and in fact, we want to just go on to the next slides. So what we cover in these workshops, so maybe another time we can come back from time to time and we can have module, you know, maybe another module like that. Would you like to do that? Would you like to do that? Inshallah. Okay. Inshallah. Hopefully we'll do that. So what we cover in those, go ahead, keep going. So in the first one, the Rouhani one, we go over this. We did a little of this morning. We didn't finish that with the students, but we look at Iman. Okay, keep going. What's the importance and impact of Iman in both the worlds? Let's look at that really. Definition of Iman. What is it? How do we build it? How do we strengthen it? How do we protect it? It's very critical. And then we look at Rouhani Amal. The amal that's going to build our ruh. Salat, Quran, dhikr, salat al-Nabi. No, back. Salat al-Nabi, istighfar, dua, fikr of maut, tawbah, all these, so we have practice. We actually have some exercises and practice it. And so we try and develop these skills, we try and develop these practices, and actually come up with a plan to put it practically in our daily schedule. Have you all got daily schedules? Daily planner? How many people have a daily planner? Come on, man. You don't plan your day? If you fail to plan, you're planning to fail. If you fail to plan, you're planning to fail. So please, you know, wake up in the morning and plan your day. Otherwise, you won't be able to do 20% of what you really would like to do. And if you plan it well, you might do 80%, 70, 80%. So please, let's all plan our day. So we come up with plans how to put this in our daily schedule. Put zikr in our life, tilawat in our life, you know, all these things. Okay, and so we have theory and we have some practical exercises. It's usually 2-3 days we spend in this module. Okay, next. Rouhani module. The next one is physical health. So we look at what does the Quran say about that, Sunnah, view of ulama, specialists. So how important is that? It's very important. Then we'll cover, go ahead. Movement and rest. You know, people think you just eat well and you're going to be fine. Sorry. Science tells us the opposite. The most important thing for your physical well-being is movement. And then proper rest as well. We don't sleep properly, we don't move properly. And we don't sleep properly because we don't move. Right? And so we need to look at that, and we'll find that in Sunnah and in the sayings of our ulama, you'll be amazed. They're light years ahead of what modern science today is talking about. They're catching up with what our ulama had to say in those days. You see, our Nabi alayhi salam, the example he gave, it's amazing. We don't know anything about that, unfortunately. Okay, next, nourishment and hunger. It's not simply about what you eat, it's also a lot about what you don't eat and when you don't eat. You know, one of the reasons why you have so much diabetes, actually diabetes, doctors will tell you much more clearly, it's basically the continual flow of insulin in the body. And the continual flow of insulin in the body is basically because we continually are munching. Go and have a Dunkin' Donut, then go down to McDonald's, then go to Kentucky Fried, you know, and then let's have a little snack and have a tea with lots of sugar, and it goes on the whole day and night. We don't give our system a chance to rest, chill out. And at a point in time, the pancreas says, look, enough is enough. we're going on strike. You know? So then you got type 2 diabetes. And after a while it just dies, and then you got type 1 and it's all over. So we can do a lot to prevent these things. So, but we just need to know very simple interventions that if we follow these things, we can find ourselves all the better for it. So cure and prevention. We have a saying in Arabic, al-wiqaya khayrun min al-ilaj. Prevention is better than cure. But when we prevent disease, it doesn't make a lot of money for people. So, so curing makes it better financially, economically, but actually it's not good for the humanity. Humanity will be in much better shape if it's healthy. And that will be if we do some preventative measures, we can be much healthier than what we are now. So we try and look at some very practical things that we can do. Simple things, practically we can do. There's exercises involved, some practical plans that we'll try and see what we're doing wrong. Let's try and eliminate that. What we're not doing, let's try and put that into our daily program. Okay, and then we talked about intelligence, intellectual health. Why did Allah give us intelligence? We mentioned that a little bit. And the tiers of knowledge. The highest tier of knowledge is about Allah. We're so busy learning how to make money, we never learned that. That's the first thing we're supposed to be learning, about Allah. And then second tier of commandments, how to please Allah, life of Abudiya. And lastly, physical support systems that facilitate. All these professions that we've made our object of life, they are simply support systems to support our physical existence. That's it. They're also important, and they're also part of our Abudiya, but they're the last level. We've turned the whole thing, paradigm inversion, so we need to take that whole thing the way we have structured it and turn it upside down. Learn about Allah, learn about how to please Allah, and then, yes, be the best in what you do. If you're an engineer, be the best engineer that there is, and that's what our aslaf were. If you're a scientist, you be the best there is. If you're a carpenter, you be the best there is. Excellence, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala loves excellence. Okay, so what we do is we make a gap analysis of these three tiers. Okay, me, Hashim, Ahmad, how much do you know about Allah? Where's your khalal? Where are the deficiencies? So let's actually look at that, analyze that, and see what I need to do to develop myself and make a plan for it. Similarly with the commands of Allah, what do I don't know? I'm a businessman. I don't know anything about ahkam al-buyur. So I need to go to the ulama and set up a program for myself. So we're going to do stuff like that and make a plan for ourselves and put it in our daily life. That's what we need to do. Okay? And also for our professional careers. This is another thing. Well, here in America, it's so competitive that you have to. But actually, we should want to. If I'm, whatever profession, whatever my career, profession, occupation is, if it's halal, we should be the best in it. We should be continually achieving higher levels of excellence in that. This is a Deeni mutalaba. So we talk about all these things. Okay, then, next, emotional intelligence. And our brother Human, Ustad Humam from Khalil, from Khalil Center. So he actually developed this. I told him that we need something like that, and this one was very kind that we met here in this masjid, mashallah, out of very interesting circumstances. And so, mashallah, with Brother Human, we developed this module, and it's very wonderful. When he's around, he actually facilitates that. So maybe we can do that over here, inshallah. So we talk about all of these things, human health and domains of happiness. Where is really happiness? Is it in what we think it is? We find out it's actually not. Human cognition, thinking, the way we think. Do you know that a lot of the ways that we think, they're actually not helping us at all? They're actually hurting us a lot. We need to analyze our method of thinking and how we think and perhaps correct it. Emotional and emotional intelligence. Knowing our own emotions and knowing how to deal with them, manage them, and understanding other people's emotions and being able to deal with them. And as people are responsible to guide the rest of humanity, this is very critical. Nafs, behavior training. Our ulama, they were the first people to talk about this. Not the first people to talk about this, but the most widest, in comprehensiveness. Our ulama, Ghazali, Razi, Jalani, all of them, mashallah. So this is not something new. Behavioral training, without that, tarbiyah, it's not going to work. Relationships, empathy, How do we talk about it? And alhamdulillah, here in the West, these skills are more prevalent, particularly in Muslim countries. This is all totally neglected. So we need to develop these skills for our emotional well-being as well. It's a very critical aspect of our overall health. Next. Social health. So what do we look at there? First of all, let's look at how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala engineered the whole social structure of humanity. It's amazing. So we take a while and just look at that and analyze that. And there's a chain of subordination, right? There's a hierarchy in society, but on the basis of justice, and how Islam deals with that is amazing. So we look at that for a while. And then we look at social relationship constructors and destructors. What are those things that we do, maybe inevitably or unknowingly, and we're destroying relationships? And there's other simple things that we can do to develop relationships and nurture relationships and preserve them and strengthen them. So we look at that in detail and see some practical stuff that we can do in that line. Digital addiction, very serious thing. So we need to learn digital dieting. To give it up altogether, cold turkey is pretty tough. So let's use it, but let's not abuse it. Let's take, like a sword, you can cut with it or it'll cut you. So we learn, what interventions we can do to, control that. Digital dieting, okay? And we're all victims of this, by the way. Specific social relationships, rights and challenges is very important. Every social construct, like man and wife, husband and wife, what are the rights and what are the challenges? Parents, children, big challenges, right? Challenges, what are the rights? So we try and look at that so everybody can have a basic idea of that. The rights of relatives, in-laws, neighbors, Muslim neighbors, non-Muslim neighbors, somebody who is friendly with you, somebody who's unfriendly with you. How do we navigate in all these different social constructions, or social constructs? So we look at that in detail, in a simple way though, in an easy way, and we try and come up with stuff that we can actually implement. Go ahead. And then ultimately, environmental health. So environmental health, we'll look at the dimensions of environment. It's not just one thing. It's not just physical, there's spiritual environment, there's moral and ethical, aspect and dimension of environment. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is vice regency of the earth and its implication. If Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made us vice regents of the earth, right? Doesn't that mean we're responsible for it as well? Yes or no? We think we're responsible for setting up the Deen. The earth that Allah gave us as the platform, we're responsible for that as well, and look what we're doing to it. So we need to look at that carefully, and what's our responsibility in that regard. Okay, practical steps for improving the environment. There's simple things that people say, well look, this is governmental level, what are we going to do? There's something every human being can do. Things that you can do to improve the environmental health, I and you. So we actually learned some very simple intervention, but very, very, effective things that we can do to safeguard the environment. And then an introduction to permaculture, which is a system which is basically, taking the natural, understanding the natural systems, the way Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala set up things, using them to our benefit and implementing them, rather than destroying them, which is what modern, society does. Modern agriculture, modern, corporate society is destroying you. Even in agriculture, we want abundance, but we end up with destroying the environment rather than creating an abundant environment. So there's a whole, you can look that up also. If you're not aware of this term, it's a wonderful system, which is, you look at it, you say, Islam, this is what Islam teaches in terms of environment. So it's a wonderful system, and we're going to introduce you to that system, which is called permaculture. Look it up, see it, Google it, and go ahead. So from an unsustainable environmental destruction, which is going on today, how we can transform that, a paradigm inversion, to a sustainable environmental abundance. We can do that. And if we don't do that, if we abuse it, we lose it. So, the environment is fastly deteriorating, and we as Muslims should be the first people out there in front line doing something about it. So that's what we look at in this module. Jazakumullahu Khairun. So after that, last thing, you got another 5 minutes? Huh? Yeah? 5 minutes? Inshallah. Okay. I don't want to hold you here against your will. So, lastly, when we say, okay, healthy, meaningful lifestyle. So what do you mean by lifestyle? Lifestyle. Yeah, meaning? Meaning the style of life. It's very simple. How do you live your life day to day? So for that, there are some tools that actually we should learn. It's a bit over and above the scope of our discussion here, but there are tools that we need to be cognizant of and be particular to and pay attention to. Like what? Go ahead. Number one, vision. Probably you've seen, vision statements for corporations, for institutions, Do you have a vision? What's your vision as a human being? What's the human being you would like to see yourself as in the future? Bi-idhnillah. So if we have a vision of what we want to develop ourselves into, then we would work towards that. If we don't, okay, let's see tomorrow. Huh? We'll cross the bridge when it comes. Suppose it doesn't ever come. So, what vision do you have for yourself as a father, as a husband, as a teacher, as a student, as a da'i ilallah, as whatever? So if we have some vision involved there, then we would take steps and plan to achieve that. It would take us in the right direction, knowing full well that we will become what Allah wants us to. And if we die in the process, we get according to our intentions. Innamal a'malu binniyat. So I have a big intention is a niyat. That's what a vision is. A big intention to do something in the future. So, that should be that's also something which Muslims tend not to have. We live a visionless life, Inshallah. We'll live for tomorrow. We're living for basically to get through from today to tomorrow. That's not what it's about. We're supposed to have, himmat aliyah, big, intentions, big niyats. Leadership. Leadership skills. Every Muslim. Kullukum ra'in wa kullukum mas'ulun an ra'iyati. You're all shepherds, you're all responsible for your flocks. Whether you're the president, whether you're a family, you're the husband you're a father of the family. You have a flock and you're responsible for them. So we need leadership skills for that. So basically that's to share your vision. You have a vision, you know how to share it. You inspire others in that vision and then you facilitate them to move along with you towards the fulfillment of that vision. Okay? And for that we need competencies. Without skills, without knowledge, without abilities, it's not going to happen. So what do we need to do? We need to develop ourselves. So, it always gets me, in Urdu they have this thing. Bhai, aap farig hai? Haan, main farig ho. Farig ho? Are you free? Yeah, I'm free. I got nothing to do. You got nothing to do? Come on. You got all this to do. You are vice regency of the world. You have to, develop, deliver the message of Islam to the entire, come on, you have nothing to do? Are you kidding me? And if we don't manage our time, will we get anything done? If we're sitting there on Facebook for half the day, and then the other half of it with games, video games, and then add another extra half on top of the two halves, playing around with WhatsApp and zap and dab. I don't know what all they've got out there, but they've just set up a thing, shaitan has set up a thing just to waste our entire, living existence. Day and night we're on it. First thing they do when they wake up, I think before the dua even. Allah, what's on face? Really, it's serious. It's very, very serious. Really. Think about it. So we need to prioritize. What is important? So if this is important, I'll plan those importances and then execute it. Plan. So time management, wealth management. People say, we have to earn halal. Well, you know what? You have to spend in a halal way also. Did you know that? No. I was in South Africa, so one of my students from Karachi, he's an imam over there. So one of his muqtadis, good guy, he's got a brand new Porsche, So my student, he says, look this guy, he's got this Porsche. Is that okay? Sheikh, is that okay? So if I say, yeah, that's not nice. And if I say, no, that's also going to be a problem. So I said, well, I tell you what. On the day of Qiyamah, if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala asks you, look, you spent, 100,000 whatever on this Porsche, you could have bought 10 Toyota Corollas, one for yourself and 9 for some other people who don't have a car. So if, suppose Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala asks you and do you think you have a good answer? If you think you have a good answer and you're able to, satisfy, this question, then, so what do you think? How much of what we're spending do we really need to spend that? You have a thing called israf, right? In Allah, Allah doesn't like the people who are musrif, spendthrift, which means you spend more on something that's jaiz than necessary. And that depends on the time and where you are and things. So there is, scope. But, driving around in a Porsche, I don't think is necessary. And that money, there's no need in the ummah or insaniyat, that there's nobody that needs that excess. Think about it. The amount of food that we throw away every day. The amount of water that we waste every day. Do we think about that? Do you think about that? We do an exercise. In the environmental module, we do an exercise. We do wudu. So we ask somebody, just take your wudu, turn on the water as you would put a bucket under that water and make your wudu. Now see how much water is actually filling up in the bucket. Yeah. You'll find it's about 5 liters, 10 liters of water. And then we do another exercise. We have a half a bottle of water and say, see if you can do wudu. And a person, first time, he does it. Full wudu, half a bottle of water, half a liter of water. Easily. Now, for example, in a country like Pakistan, 200 million people, at least 100 million of them offer salat, I suppose. So 100 million people wasting 10 liters of water every 5 times a day. How much water is that? And then we say in Pakistan, we're one of the most water-stressed countries in the world, number 4. Number 4 most water-stressed country in the world. We have 5 major rivers in Pakistan. We've got glaciers, we've got K2, 9 of the highest peaks in the world, all in Pakistan. We've got a water problem, water scarcity, we've got water abundance. We are wasting it. We're wasting the resource. Allah has given us plenty. There's no scarcity of anything, there's plenty of everything. We waste it. When one man is consuming the amount of 100 other men, yeah, you're going to have a problem. You're going to have a problem. So we need to understand that. So we need to, these are life skills that every Muslim needs to learn these things, inshallah. So in our workshops, we try and learn some of these things, and otherwise, a Muslim sets his whole life, as Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam mentioned, that a Muslim seeks knowledge from the cradle to the grave. And when is the grave? If not today, tomorrow. So we continuously strive to better ourselves, to become healthier and better mu'mineen, abideen, ashab al-Abudiya, that we fulfill our purpose of existence, which is to serve Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the best possible manner. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give me and all of you tawfiq. Okay? Any questions? Any other? Yeah. Well, this is my ijtihad, but I think it's pretty much like that. I mean, these are how, when we see this process taking place as a mu'min grows in his iman, this is generally the maqamat, that he sort of develops. It's an organic process. So this is pretty much, again, this is, we're trying to explain an example given by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So another person will think and come up with something much better than I did. But at least this gives you food for thought. Yeah? Yeah. All these 6 modules, some of them are 2 or 3 days, some of them are 1 day, some of them are 2 days. It's about 10 days, of work. Yeah, basically. So basically what we do in Karachi or other places where we have people come back and forth, we do one of the modules and then we give a couple of weeks or maybe a month, digest that one, then they come back for the next one, then we review the last one, how you doing with that, to see how your things are going, and then we move along like that, incrementally. So we can maybe do something like that here, inshallah. Yeah.
So is there a change in the culture in Pakistan or where?
Well, change, there's a thing called change management, right? As they say, Rome didn't change in a day. Nabi alayhi salatu wasalam worked in Makkah and Medina for how long? 23 years. The best of creation working with the best of creation. You know? The best of creation, al-Itlaq, Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, working with the best of creation after him and the Anbiya, Sahaba, it took a good amount of time. It's not going to happen in a day. And alhamdulillah, in places the way Muslim countries are now, the way that they are, it's going to be a long time before we see major change. But alhamdulillah, yes. We see individuals changing, we see organizations changing. And yes, you know, in fact, in Pakistan, we do see a change moving in these directions. I think not simply because we're doing stuff like this, but out of necessity. You know, things are getting really rough. If we don't, for example, environment. Everybody knows now, water. You know, nobody used to talk about water scarcity and water shortage, saving water. Now everybody's talking about it because they're paying for it. They don't have it. In Pakistan, you turn on the tap, you might get water, you probably won't. You might get water for an hour, you might get it for 2 hours, you might get it a day or 3 in a week. In some places, you have people walking, you know, for 5-6 kilometers with pots on their heads for water, which we waste millions of gallons daily. You know? So, but people are now starting to think, you know, out of necessity. And obviously, I'm not the only one doing this. A lot of people now are working on these things. And inshallah, you all work for these things, bi'idhnillahi ta'ala. Inshallah, awareness is coming up. I was just mentioning to the students today, we never could imagine what we see today in the shape of Islam. You know, 40 years ago, you know, you didn't have a single place where somebody could become a hafiz of Quran. No, hafiz, they don't find a place to lead Taraweeh. There's a dearth of so many hufaz. Ulama coming out of this country. Who could have imagined that? So alhamdulillah, you know, it's not like, you know, mayusi, you know, it's not like, you know, yas, it's not like, you know, despair. There's a lot to be hopeful, there's a lot to be positive about. Yes, there's a struggle, haq, batil, you know, good, bad, righteousness, evil, it's all there. That's the nature of life. But alhamdulillah, walhamdulillah, thumma alhamdulillah, al-aqibatu lit-taqwa. Yeah. So inshallah, yes, things are moving. Maybe not as fast as we would like to see, but they are moving. According to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's taqdeer. Okay? Okay.
You have to call you back, everyone. Huh? Alhamdulillah, already you got the feedback that we definitely have to call Sheikh back, inshallah, for the full workshop. We can all